Hello, my name is Dr. Anthony Schrag, and I'm going to give you a very brief overview on the MA Applied Art and Social Practice at Queen Margaret University here in the lovely Edinburgh. So the Applied Arts and Social Practice is a new program started last year, but it really kind of takes on the consideration that sometimes art has a functional role in society. So this is really apparent in a lot of arts and healthcare contexts, arts and education, as well as the social turn that artists themselves are advocating. And what we're interested in doing is exploring how best to support and develop broadly social practice applied art can be. And we don't necessarily place a limit on the kind of genre. So we don't say it can be theater, visual arts, performance, music, installation. We're not suggesting this specific form. What we're really interested in is how we can reflect on and push our students to think about not only the processes of engagements, but the theories and backgrounds and histories of applied art, and as well as the ethics involved with working with other people. And how a creative practitioner might engage with other people through this taught MA. The program's aims are definitely practical, and we definitely sort of push people to think through reflection, theory, and critical examination. But there are also theoretical written elements as well. And what we do is we aim to sort of think about pushing people to think about the difference between conceptual thinking that encourages you not only to be an effective practitioner, but also give you sort of the practical tools to think about how do you be a sustainable one and succeed within the field. So the course itself basically looks at what does it mean to really think about working with other people in a cultural or creative context, in an applied or social context. Is that about education? Is that about making people feel better? Is that about activism? Is that about critique? There are a variety of different ways we can think about it, and the course is really about pushing you in your context to think about how to do that in sustainable ways. So the course can be both full-time or part-time. You can either take it over 1 year or 2. And it generally is taught over 1 day if it's part-time, or 2 days if it's full-time, generally, not always. And it's taught face-to-face, including lectures, practical seminars, field trips, as well as a lot of industry-based learning activities. On top of the taught teaching, which is face-to-face, there's also sort of elements that you can have 2 days a week in sort of personal study, doing your reading or assessments or research. And there's a variety of different assessments, as I mentioned. So not only the sort of practical vivas, proposals, but there's also sort of essays and fundraising packs and a finance exam. Now, most people freak out when we say the questions of the finance exam. Don't worry, we're not teaching algorithms or algebra or geometry. It's about financial literacy. And we think this is really important, especially for artists who want to be sustainable. You need to understand a lot of the terms. So this is what we're kind of looking for. What's important to mention is that, due to the diversity of the different medias, we don't offer studio spaces. We do certainly have a lot of resources. We have a lot of media rooms. We have black box theater. We have photography sessions. But the idea with a lot of social practice is that you work in the field. And so while there are all the resources, libraries, computers, desks on the campus that you can have access to, the idea is that it's not a studio-based program, but we do support you to be able to do that. And as a new program, we're also very quite small. And we think that's actually a benefit of the course because it means that you get direct contact. So currently with about 3 staff, there's about up to 15 students. That means a 1-to-5 ratio, which is, we think is pretty good. I'll talk a little bit about the staff in a second, but just to kind of give you some ideas of the type of modules that we teach. Generally, it's about 3 modules in each term over the course of a year, or about 1.5 over the course of a year, or 2 years, I apologize, if you're doing it part-time. But what we kind of focus on is not only the histories and theories, which kind of takes your historical perspectives in the background, but looking at the theoretical justifications of a lot of applied art theories. And we also look at social practice and different ways of working with you. So that's with people. So that's practical skills about engaging, such as dialogue, interpersonal skills, group facilitation, but also about practice as research, which is thinking about how your research can be pushed to think about developing knowledge and what that means in a master's process, but also what that knowledge might mean for the wider field. We also have some really practical skills, so such as planning and marketing cultural projects. And this is really about giving yourself grounding to be able to not only effectively do your projects as artistic works, but also to make sure that they're sustainable. And that includes the fundraising, finance and development module, which really, again, gives you that grounding to think about both the sort of economics as well as the conceptual aesthetic works. And the final, and we have one final module, which is the only way, is ethics, which really looks at developing critical and practical skills to engage in the public delivery of projects in regards to the participatory agenda. You know, where's the power of ethics within these? And the final project is a dissertation project, which is a sort of either self-directed or a residency style project, which we have, which we can partner you with. But it's actually about doing a piece of applied art or social practice. And so we can link you in with participation organizations, and we can link you in with people we have memorandums of understanding with. So for example, the Lyceum Theatre or Stills Gallery or Fruit Market Gallery or Craig Miller Community Context or ArtLink, which is an arts and health charity, and all of these people who we have really good relationships with, for whom you can develop positive relationships with to develop a project in and of itself. Or if you have a specific community you're already working with, you can work with them in itself. So for example, we have had students in this cohort who are particularly interested in, for example, eating disorders and have a lot of connections with people who work within eating disorders and is working with their network, or a group who's working particularly in with the elderly, and they have a network with they wish to sort of develop their projects with. So the course structure, as I mentioned, is broken down over the course of a year, and there's generally 3 modules. If you're doing it full-time, generally 3 modules per semester, and it's a full-time 12 months module as full-time. We have a new community team, a new team which we've developed, all coming from very different perspectives. It's very white and male. We recognize that, and so part of this is making sure that we make sure that we have a variety of different lecturers from various different backgrounds, to make sure that we are not sort of presenting specific ideologies. We're very interested in making sure that progressive ideologies are very present. We have a group within QMU, and which Andy is part of, about decolonizing the curriculum. So while we do have our specific expertise, we want to make sure that we don't have, that we're not presenting the only expertise, and giving space to make sure that there is critical reflection for our team to be able to help and support you wherever you are and whatever your context. That said, it's one of the benefits of having us as a team is that we do have quite long histories in community theatre, film, engagement, visual arts, ethics, management, documentation, drama. So we can all kind of help you with that. And as I said, with a sort of cohort of between about 15 students and 3 staff, that's a pretty good staff-student ratio. One of the best things about the program is that you're in Edinburgh. And Edinburgh, I think, it's really important that you think of this city as a resource, because we are a national European a national capital of Scotland, but we're also very linked to European contexts. But also because of the festival city, which I'll talk about in a second, we have very big and very strong relationships with a lot of people within the city, including people we're currently working with: Stills Photography Gallery, Fruit Market Gallery, Craig Miller Community, Travelling Gallery, ArtLink Edinburgh, Arts and Health, and NHS Edinburgh, to name just a few. And these are sort of big name, nationally focused or internationally focused cultural sites which support participatory social practice, which we work with. And in that sense, the city itself is one of your main resources. And it has a variety of contexts. We have very good relationships with the National Theatre, the National Museum, I do apologize, which is this image, as well as Dance Space, as well as the music scenes in Edinburgh, including Celtic Connected, as well as the Mela. There's a lot of LGBT queer arts that come through, as well as sort of more contemporary arts and music and theatres and classical music. So the city itself is one of the resources that we like to shout about. And of course, from an international context, we can help you with finding accommodation, whether that's living on the campus. I should say that the campus itself is a fantastic building. It's a new build. It's certainly been very helpful during the COVID lockdown situation because it's very well ventilated. It's very well, it's very new. It's very easy to adapt. But it itself is only 6 minutes from the center of Edinburgh by train. I cycle. I live in the center of Edinburgh. I cycle. It takes me less than 20 minutes. And so as a campus, it's quite a beautiful little bubble, but it also means that we're embedded within local communities as well as very linked to the city itself. In terms of undergraduates requirements, we do require entry requirements. We do require an undergraduate degree, such as arts, humanities, or significant interest or a passion for the arts and cultures. And we do require an Ielts score of 6.5 or above. And often, not always, we have a pre-sessional course for English. So if we are running those, I do encourage you to take part of it. And some bursaries are often available, but there's also lots of competition for these, but we can help you to develop those bids. So lastly, I just wanted to welcome you, and my email is on the slide right now. So please do feel free to email me. Again, my name's Anthony, or email admissions directly, and I'm more than happy to talk more about the program, talk more about Edinburgh itself, where we go, what we do, and also the destinations that a lot of our graduates aim to go to. But other than that, I just wanted to thank you very much and hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever it is you are. Nice to speak to you. Hello, good morning or afternoon or good evening or just hello for wherever you are. My name is Dr. Anthony Schrag, and I'm going to give a short introduction to the Masters of Arts, Festivals and Cultural Management here at Queen Margaret University in the lovely city of Edinburgh. What I'll do is I'll talk a little bit about the program and discuss a little bit about the festival city itself, and then end with some entry requirements as well as some insights to the campus. I'll talk a little bit about our social media that you can snoop around and see what it is that we do. So the program itself is aimed at developing and understanding current cultural management approaches and the environments in which that work happens. And the work is really about asking people to really reflect deeply on the cultural sector and stay informed with cultural approaches and creative approaches to cultural management. What it tries to do, the award, is it tries to balance the study of business management and how that's applicable to arts organizations in the cultural sector, but also thinking about the external environment, for example, issues of policy, trends of cultural practice, different ways of thinking about management in general. And what we really try to do is balance the theoretical context with the practical, and sort of really kind of put those two in process, because we can teach you all that we can about the theory, but it's actually kind of looking at what that means in practical reality for you is keen. I guess kind of as a broader picture, a lot of the way that I talk about cultural management is to ask people to think about how business practices and business management, which is generally where the study comes from, can really be adapted to the cultural sector, which is not about sales or selling an object or producing a widget to sell, but really about the more kind of ephemeral, affective, emotional, tacit and intangible elements of life, and how we can really put these two things, which are sometimes at odds, together in a more productive way. The project team is quite diverse. We have quite a few people who come from a variety of different perspectives. We hope that gives you a really well-rounded experience. So, for example, we have Rachel, who works in the cultural policy department and is deeply embedded into this field, and indeed has been involved in writing Scotland's cultural policy. But also we have people like David Stevenson, who has worked in the business sector for many years, as well as Rachel, who works in the events and planning and marketing sector. We also have international visitors like Andrew, who works from international perspectives about the EU and strategic leadership. And I myself used to work as an artist for many years until I got interested in the role of the role of art within management practices. So from that perspective, we hope we kind of give you a really rounded idea of what the whole sector really is doing. And we also invite in visiting lecturers to talk about their expertise. How the program is oriented is we do 6 core taught modules, which I'll talk about in just a second, as well as 1 self-directed project. And over the course of 2 semesters, we combine a variety of teaching processes, including block taught, which are intensive day studies, or we do group works, or we do activities, which really looks to kind of expand your learning. And each semester is about 12 to 14 weeks long. And on top of face-to-face teaching, there's an understanding that you do a couple days a week doing personal study, i.e. writing, reading. And we do a variety of different assessments. And the reason we do that is because we recognize that everyone has different skills, from more traditional essay writing to more group activities to more practical projects. We kind of recognize that there are a variety of different ways that you can learn, and we want to celebrate and work with all of those. And the final project builds to, the program builds to a final project, which is equally weighted between a traditional research dissertation, which is a written 10,000 word piece. But you can also, and that's a really important thing, because it's about presenting yourself as an expert, because it's about you and you presenting yourself as someone who knows something deeply about a subject and can be useful in the field. Or you could do some sort of business funding project or business planning document, such as a business plan or a strategic plan or a feasibility study. And these are not academic exercises. These are intended to make you look at that these are exactly what it is that you want to do. The idea is that you do something that as soon as you leave the program, you could go and you could do. Or you could deliver a real world project. You could do a small festival or a bespoke gallery exhibition or some sort of theatrical work, which shows that you've taken all our teaching from the cultural management side and you're putting that into practice. We think that the dissertation really kind of gives you a fantastic mechanism to leap off and go towards your future career. I should say that the program is taught both part-time and full-time. And so you could do the course in 1 year over in a full-time study, or you could do it over 2 years at a part-time study. This, of course, is depending upon visas and accessibility. It's also important to recognize that we both have January starts and September starts, that means that depending on what is useful to you, you can come at any time. There's no difference in the offer of what you receive. There is a slight difference in the order of those programs, those classes, but and there's a slightly longer version for January starts because you miss out the first summer element. But actually, the quality of the content is the same. I should say that many of our international visitors prefer the January starts, just because it does mean that you have a summer off in Edinburgh. But just to give you a kind of an idea of a full-time September start, which is sort of the normal way of going through, the first semester will look at cultural policy, qualitative research, and leadership and governance, as well as arts management and practice. This is a year-long module. I'll talk about that in a second. And the second semester is fundraising, finance, and development, as well as planning and marketing, and completing the arts management and practice module. And then the semester 3 is the final project, which is where you will do your dissertation. Along with a lot of the other projects that we do, you'll get self-directed visits to local festivals, local cultures, local projects, and some opportunities to do some international work possibly. One of the main courses that I think is really unique with what we do is the industry-based learning. Now, we don't call this a placement because we don't want you to think about it as a specific set of times in a specific place. Rather, it's called an industry-based learning because it's about what's most useful for you. And we help students to be able to get that experience that is most that will help them most in terms of the development of their career. So what we do is we use this module to get senior managers who are working in the arts to come and talk about the work that they do, and it really sort of allows the theory that we've taught to be looked at in practice. It also is where, as I mentioned, you have this industry-based learning, which is not a placement, but what it is, so say, for example, you might want to look at a volunteer management. You have excellent experience in putting festivals on, and you have excellent experience in budgeting or marketing, but what you really don't is some sort of volunteer management. What we can do is match you up with either a festival or a cultural organization or a theater who might be able to support you to do that. Now, because we're in the festival city and we've kind of made a name for ourselves, we have a lot of people who come to us directly with internships, with projects that are available, and those are often paid employment where you can take that on and do that project. But conversely, we can help you seek out a specific project you want. So for example, quite recently, we had a student who was very interested in literature. So we managed to develop a relationship with the Scottish Poetry Library and set up a relationship with them where they could divine some sort of project for our student that really pushed their understanding of what it meant to run a literature project. And so it really is a sort of a site where you can kind of not only push your own networks, but also your own experience. And we can help you get those experience, letters of reference, introductions, using our networks and all those sorts of things. And that's usually some of the most sort of beneficial experiences of the course come from those. And a lot of that means that what we're doing, especially with our industry-based learning, is about lived insight as well as the theoretical grounding that we do. So here's some pictures for visiting the Glasgow Film Theatre, as well as the Glasgow Women's Library and Edinburgh's Lyceum and out of the Drill Hall in Edinburgh. We also visit Dundee to look at Dundee Rep as well as the V&A. We also have site visits from people from who are independent curators and freelancers, as well as experts and senior managers from the Edinburgh International Festival, Fruit Market Gallery, Stills Gallery, lots of other places like that who can help you sort of give insights into what it really means. We're also very keen that we make sure that we're committed to expanding your understanding of equalities, diversity, and inclusion. So that means making sure that we're having speakers from people from working class backgrounds, disabled backgrounds, from Black minority ethnic backgrounds, to make sure that our cultural management isn't sat within a sort of colonial context of traditional ways of working, but actually more able to challenge you to think about different understandings of what progressive cultural management might look like. We have other extracurricular activities, so to speak. Some of these are to be confirmed as usual, but we usually develop something like the Venice Fellowship, which is where one student can apply to go and work in Venice for a month as part of the Venice Biennale. We try to do a rural arts trip, which is where we kind of, a few select of us go and look at what it means to be operating within the rural. And so it's definitely not just about sitting in class and learning about culture, cultural management. It's actually about going out and making sure we understand the fullest diversity of it. And we have lots of social media forums that we do. We have an Instagram account. We have an official Facebook account, where we post regular jobs and insights and projects. But we also have an unofficial Facebook page, which we think it's really important to have, where the students can have a support mechanism where they can talk to each other. And it's also where, if you're interested to go out and speak to some student to find out exactly how the experience is going for them without me, you're very welcome to do that. We feel very confident that the students will give you a glowing review. But it's important, I think, that we don't just talk about what we teach, but we actually talk about the fact that you're based in Edinburgh, which is the city of culture. And it's the depth of culture that's on our doorstep. We are the premier festival city. We have quite a fundamental link to national and international projects. And the fact that Queen Margaret's University is 6 minutes from the centre via train. I cycle into Queen Margaret's. It takes me 20 minutes. I live dead centre in the town. So we have a very small and yet very internationally focused and very culturally active European city right here. And we've developed such great networks with them. It allows you to live in Edinburgh, in one of the most beautiful cities in the world, from my perspective. But it also means that you can think of these things as case studies and try to reflect upon the topics that you're studying to be able to see in practice some of the things that we're thinking about. And certainly some of these organizations that we work with, which by no means exhaustive, can talk a lot about the way that we can think about cultural management in the world today. It's similarly important to think about the Edinburgh Festival if you're very particularly keen in thinking about festivals. There's no one Edinburgh Festival. There are hundreds of them. There's the Jazz Festival, the Music Festival, the Comedy Festival, the Book Festival, the Magic Festival, the Children's Festival, the Aging Festival. There's many festivals. And these networks of organizations are a really fascinating kind of ecology of festivals that are not always easy to negotiate, but certainly as a cultural management, we have very interesting access points to reflect on them. And certainly Edinburgh as a city benefits although we could argue that actually it is detrimental because it goes from a very small city of 500,000 people to sometimes 2.4 million. So, you know, there are things to reflect about it. And I mention these things to not act as a selling point, but actually say cultural management is difficult and there are lots of questions to think about. And we are in the correct context really to examine all those elements, good, bad, and ugly. And the city of Edinburgh is as I'll show you in just these pictures, full of all these sorts of things. So we have the National Galleries, dance space, there's a variety of music festivals, Celtic connections, there's the Mela, which is lots of international festivals, there's LGBT and queer festivals, we have a lot of punk and contemporary music, there's obviously, you know, classical musicians in the pub, and pub is drinking at the pub is a national pastime in Scotland. And so, you know, there are all these things that you can participate in, not only as part of your experience as a student, but as a sort of cultural management person. So do think of Edinburgh as a place that is one of the resources that you'll get. Certainly in the campus, you know, we have a bespoke campus. It was, when it was built a couple of years ago, the greenest campus in Europe. It is, as I mentioned, very close. It is very bespoke. It's got campus living. You know, certainly their admissions team and the international team can help you sort accommodation, but we can also help you if you're interested in living off campus. In terms of the entry requirements, we do require an undergraduate degree. Doesn't matter in what it is in, as long as you have an undergraduate degree, or you can have significant experience within the field, and that's important because we recognize the fact that actually not everyone is academic in that context, but has significant experience. And so an interest or a passion in arts and culture is the main thing. We do need an Ielts score of 6.5 above. If you have any questions about that, do speak to our admissions team. And often we have pre-sessional English courses that happen. If those are running, I do encourage you to take advantage of them if English is your second language. And sometimes there are bursaries available, but there's obviously a lot of competition for these. So there's a lot of support that you can receive. And I just want to end by suggesting, and my name and email is on the slide right now, as well as the link to admissions, that I would be more than happy to set up an email conversation, a Zoom or a Skype call to talk a little bit more about the program, or if you have any concerns about Edinburgh itself, or if you're interested in finding out more about what we offer or the content, then please do feel free to email me. But I hope this has given you a brief understanding of what cultural management at arts festivals, skipping as I go to the end, hope has given you a brief understanding of what arts festivals and cultural management at Queen Margaret's University can offer you. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much.